Oh, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today, and a welcome to the University of Phoenix's Educational Equity Webinar Series. We're happy to have you with us today as we bring together a few wonderful leaders to talk about true stories of women leaders and how they define the norm. We are extremely excited to hear from our moderator and panelists today. Next slide, please. My name is Tanja Richardson, Director in the Office of Educational Equity. I have the honor of co-hosting this monthly series with my colleague, Saray Lopez, fellow director in this office. The Educational Equity Webinar Series was designed to foster a learning environment where we may explore paths to empower individual action for greater unity and societal transformation. These conversations are a priority at University of Phoenix because we serve working adults across all industries, in which 56% of those students identify as members of historically underrepresented communities. Throughout these webinars, we facilitate thought-provoking conversations to promote the practice of inclusive leadership in today's culturally complex society. Saray?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing where you're joining us from, all the way from Alaska down to Texas. So we have all weathers included here today. So thank you all. Before we begin, we want to take a moment and invite you to join us in acknowledging the original inhabitants of all the lands on which we are standing. So while we meet virtually, I do invite you to join me in taking a moment right now, pausing to give gratitude and honoring the Indigenous people who were the original custodians of the various lands we each call home. We do recognize that land acknowledgement alone is insufficient, yet it does serve as a starting point as we continue our individual journeys towards racial equity. Here in Phoenix metropolitan area, we inhabit the Hohokam, Akimel O'odham, Pipash, and Yavapai lands. So thank you all. Thank you for taking this moment to honor the original custodians of these lands. And we invite you to look up the lands which you live in and take a moment to learn the history of where you're at. All right, so March is also, as far as Cultural Awareness Month, we want to make sure that we're raising awareness of the significant equity, diversity, and inclusion dates and milestones throughout history. March being International Women's History Month. So many things happening, and we do know we may be missing some important dates here. So if you want to take a moment and they're related to diversity, equity, and inclusion types of topics, please share a link, resources, what dates we're missing, so we can make sure we add them in the future and we can all learn more about it. Tanja.
Well, we always have a shameless plug for our next webinar. So please, if you're joining us today, we're going to allow a little time for you to scan the QR code here. We'll also be sharing a link to register for our next webinar in the chat. Next month, we'll be talking about inclusive leadership and prioritizing accessible environments. Later, before we close out, we're going to share a little information about our Inclusive Leadership Summit that we'll be hosting in May. This will serve as somewhat of a preview of some of the content that we will be covering in the summit. We recognize that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a priority for many organizations, but there are several aspects of diversity and inclusion that are often overlooked or not included, and we feel that accessibility is one of those. So we want to bring more recognition and awareness to that. So please register, join, and share with your colleagues. We look forward to seeing you next month. Okay, so now for some of the fun stuff. We want to make sure that we set the tone for today's discussion. So listed here are some guidelines that we believe are essential to fostering respectful conversations. We value your participation in potentially uncomfortable discussions, as this reinforces our willingness to learn and grow. We encourage you to share your experiences and perspective in the chat box. We're going to hear some great stories today. We want to hear yours as well. We do ask that all participants contribute to an atmosphere of mutual respect and sensitivity. In addition, we highly encourage you to connect with one another. Share your LinkedIn profile. We see that you're sharing where you all are joining us from. We'd also like to share the opportunity for us all to connect with one another. Also, feel free to share any resources that you have that are related to some of the stories that our leaders will be sharing today. If you have any questions during the presentations, type them into the question box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then we will answer those questions at the end of the session as time allows.
And now to the discussion for today. We are so excited to be joined by such incredible leaders and individuals that are influential within their own spaces and make such a difference in our world. So I'm going to start by introducing our moderator, and then you'll hear from each of the panelists as they introduce themselves once we get into the discussion. Today, we're being joined by Joyce Medina. She has over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit, education, and philanthropic sectors. After graduating from Arizona State University in Child Development, she became a Nation Urban Fellow at Barrett College, earning a Master's of Public Administration. She has served the philanthropic community through roles at the Arizona Community Foundation, First Things First, Hispanic Giving Circle, and now at the Doherty Foundation. In all the work that Joyce has done, she holds an equity lens throughout it, seeking to give and share power in communities most impacted by philanthropic funding. And the bios can go on, and as always, we can do entire webinars on the incredible accomplishments of these amazing leaders that are joining us today. So I will allow them each to just share a little glimpse of how amazing they are. And without further ado, Joyce, get us started.
Thank you so much, and good morning. It is a pleasure to be with you all this morning. As Sari said, my name is Joyce Medina Harper. I currently hold the executive director role at the Doherty Foundation. We are a small private foundation that offers college financial assistance, scholarships to Arizona students. And I've been doing this work, about 15 years now in a couple of different locations, and has given me such a rich opportunity to serve my community and also expand the way we think about giving in our community. It is such a pleasure for me to be a moderator today. A really deep and integral part of my leadership journey really has been about learning and being curious about other people's experience. I like to think, and somewhere in this way, in this journey, I learned that I am an expert in my own lived experience, right? I know my story and what got me here today, but that doesn't make me an expert in how other people got to be where they are. And so I am deeply curious about how other people define success, how they move through failure and define their forward path. So I hope to poke and pull out some of those stories from our panelists today. And I invite you, our attendees today, to really sit in that space of being curious and thinking about how, some of these moments you're going to hear about connect to your story of success, or when we didn't succeed, and what your path forward might be shaped by some of what you learned today. We invite you to share your thoughts in the chat along the way. I'm going to try and keep an eye on that and maybe pull something in if we can. But we will try and save some time as well at the end for questions and answers. If you would like to put those in the chat along the way, you're welcome to. We'll try and keep track of those, but you're welcome to re-enter them at the end when we invite time for that. So thank you for your your contributions to this. Oh, thanks for the comment on my artwork. Yes, this is an Indigenous artist named David Ramirez from Albuquerque, well, actually Rio Rancho, New Mexico, which is where my family is from. And these here are two artists that I have grown in my own home. I am a wife and a mother to two boys, 5 and 8 years old, and proud to be on a learning journey as a parent as well. So you'll hear little snippets of that along the way. So I am going to start us off. Let's see here. I'm so excited to introduce you to the women that have been invited today to speak. Such a richness in this group. I'm going to start with Ty, Dr. Ty Jones. And Ty, would you please share an introduction about yourself with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so honored to be here today with these wonderful women, Cindy and Liz, of course, Joyce, Tandra, Sarai, and Jaleesa. I am an Agile people leader here at the university. I have a long history with University of Phoenix. I came from Fortune 500 company and decided I wanted to change my entire focus for my future, my career, and University of Phoenix was a place that I was familiar with. So I started from the ground, working in enrollment and just understanding our students and starting to learn their stories, and then growing my education with the university and just looking for opportunities to lead and make an impact with all of the wonderful staff that we have here. So that's a part of my journey. I also help with student athletes outside of the university, helping them to grow as leaders so that they can create new legacies in their universities, and working with anyone K through 12 as far as students or teachers who are looking to develop student leadership skills and being able to spread that leadership ability across their environments.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So we're going to start digging in. What is something that has inspired you to pursue a career in this field, and how did you get where you are today?
So my field is very interesting because I am actually in leadership and have gone all through the leadership areas, but I'm actually working in information technology right now. So my passion is to teach everyone who will listen about the abilities of leaders in all areas. So you can take leadership skills and apply them to education, but then you can also take something like that and apply it to athletics or apply it to information technology. Or I think trying to remove the barriers on what a leader looks like and what areas are appropriate for leadership is something that I'm very passionate about. And that's where my academic focus has been, my research focus has been. So I plan to continue on that journey.
Amazing. Yeah, when you bring up barriers, like my brain starts flooding with all the things that I see, advancing students in higher education and into career fields, what barriers come up. So share a little bit about that for me. What barriers are you seeing in that space?
When it comes to leadership, I think that people are a little bit afraid of that word. I think there's a specific idea of what a leader, quote unquote, looks like, or who should be able to step into a leadership type of responsibility, for example. And I know there's plenty of theories out there that say, well, leaders can be taught or leaders are just born, and we could argue all of those things all day. But I do think that if someone is interested in growing themselves, it's not about the idea of leadership, it's about the specific characteristics that you can bring to the table that help others around you become better. And so something that we do in IT is called I Lead Initiative. And it's an opportunity for anyone of any level, from any background, who wants to become a leader to join together to understand how to communicate better or how to use certain principles. Is something we're doing right now, certain principles to step up their game when it comes to working in a team or collaborating or whatever the leadership opportunity is. Just teaching people that if you break that down, you can actually accomplish that idea of leadership right there at home.
I think it's really important. And again, you sparked something in me. When you say leadership characteristics, and then you reflect on your leadership journey in this space, what are either a characteristic or a key attribute that you believe have been really important for your successful leadership?
I think, and this takes me back to a conversation that a past education evangelist at Google talked about. His name was Jamie Katap. He talked about collaboration being the #1 leadership ability that Google, in that instance, was looking for in their interview candidates. And that was very interesting because collaboration ranked very high, like 1 or 2 on their list. And then leadership by word ranked about 14 on the list. So when we start to break that down, something like collaborating, listening, having a high emotional intelligence, just different things about leadership, if you break it down, we're actually looking for these things in everybody we work with. And so I think it's more about leading our peers and setting an example and being comfortable with stepping back and allowing others to step forward and following as well as leading. That opens the doors for us.
Wow, really great. Thank you, Ty. What would you say? So as we're looking to share, information with upcoming leaders who are finding their own path forward, how would you encourage them to develop a leadership characteristic that really is true and honors who they are?
I think and I tell the individuals I support this every day, it's very important to look in the mirror, right? And this is a figurative, but look in the mirror and really start to think about your strength and your weaknesses, not how we do, when we're preparing for an interview and we have to come up with 2 or 3 weaknesses and strengths, but really assessing yourself in a real world situation and determining what areas do you want to improve. And then I always suggest having at least one thing that you're working towards at all times. So no one has ever arrived, right? We all have something we have to get better at. When I reached that doctoral achievement, I said, I want to start over in IT because I want to be able to get better at something. And so it's just setting that goal for yourself to say, just look at one thing at a time. And if I do that, then I know I'm improving for myself and for the people around me, and I'm always getting better. So that's one of my suggestions.
That's really wonderful. Thank you, Ty, for all of that sharing. We're going to come back to you in a few minutes. But at this time, I'm going to invite, Liz, since you're already on the screen, thank you for joining us. Liz is joining us from Hawaii today, so we're all jealous, me especially. But welcome. If you would share a few things about yourself that you think our attendees would like to know.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks, Joyce. Right now, I'm currently in Hawaii. I work as a project manager / systems design engineer for integrated security technologies. Again, stellar group of women that I'm part of the panel today. I'm completely removed from all the traditional like DEI, HR type roles. I am in the military industrial complex. Like it is male dominated, very masculine. And I love existing in places that were not meant for me. So I'm here just being that little light that, we need DEI anywhere we go, right? Type deal. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm looking forward to learning and imparting knowledge from everybody. It's great seeing everyone from everywhere. And one thing I can take away from the conversation that was happening prior to this one, I love what you said about one thing is a great start. We just need to focus on that one thing. We need to understand where we are in the ecosystem, understand ourselves, and live authentic lives, understand who we are. And that way it's easier to understand others and always come from a place of curiosity. I'm always learning. Great leaders are always learning, and great leaders are always setting the example. You don't have to have the title of a leader. Just by setting the example, you are already a leader. You're already imparting influence. And that's what I want to.
That's great, Liz. Thank you. You gave me chills when you said spaces that weren't meant for me. Can you share a little bit more about what that means for you?
My journey has been kind of different. So growing up, I always wanted to become a journalist, writing and all that stuff. And then, 9/11 happened, and I was like, oh, I want to go be that embedded journalist, reporting about the war or whatever. And things happened, and I enlisted in the Navy, and I learned more about just things are not binary when it comes to global issues or just issues in general, geopolitical, socioeconomic, all that stuff. And I learned so much. And just by existing in that space that was not meant for me. I mean, I was in the US Navy. The first women that were put in a combat ship was like in the 80s. I joined when in 2006. I mean, we were new essentially, right? And I love being there. I love, giving others different perspectives and getting them and myself uncomfortable and living in that discomfort so we can learn together. I like being in those spaces.
Oh, you're giving me all the feels when you talk about discomfort. I'm a lady who practices racial equity and philanthropy. Talk about discomfort. Oh, I love it. That's great. So I love to hear that. Liz, you, from what I have learned from you in our short time together, are really interested in how you can advocate and be a good mentor for other women coming up in spaces near you. Tell me about that. Tell me about how you see yourself as an advocate for women, especially those who don't have access.
So part of being a good leader is basically recognizing people who don't have the same access as you, or just access in general, right? Access to good mentors, access to education, housing security, food security, and knowing about yourself and having these experiences with other people and being curious. You start to recognize people that you can advocate for besides advocating for yourself. And I always come from a mindset of learning and curiosity. So I want to learn about people before I don't judge. Like that's not the initial anymore, not the initial reaction anymore, because I'm just curious, like, why are they the way they are? When I start feeling a certain way about somebody, even when I feel good about someone, I'm checking my own bias. Like, why do I like this person? Why don't I like them? Okay, let's learn about them, all that stuff. So and from recognizing that and having those conversations, then I start to advocate for these people if they don't have the access. And you want to be that voice, because I was that person too, coming up in a male-dominated industries, and having really great allies and mentors take me up under their wing. And most of them were male, because that was all there was, and of course, the very few females that were there. And what I noticed is with the females, we sometimes live in this scarcity mindset where we're the only very limited places at the table. And I would like to, as a leader, I've been doing that, making sure that people all feel that we have a space. Just like me, I'm occupying these spaces that I have no business being in. I give that same, attitude and light to others, be like, nah, we all belong here, let's go, let's get things done. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you for saying that. I want to bring in just tie that to my lived experience a little bit. I also serve as the co-chair of the board of directors for the YWCA Metropolitan Phoenix. And for those of you who don't know the YWCA, it's an organization whose mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. And when I became a board leader in this organization, I've served on numerous boards, primarily due to my connection to philanthropy. And there's always an interesting power struggle at these tables, right? Who has access to power, whether you're just a member or whether you actually have power at the table, and how we give and hold power in our communities, in our, even in our work settings, in our families, and our lives, is really important. So how do you, Liz, tell me more about how you see mentoring women as they grow to understand and learn how to hold their own power?
Well, again, coming from, your own experiences, and, you lean on your own experiences, of course, but you lean on your formal education, and then you lean on, what others have taught you as mentors. So from there, I basically just impart, whatever has given me success as a leader in either in the industry I'm in or just as a leader in general, right? I just impart that knowledge, and I don't push, because I remember when I was younger, it was harder for, in general, younger people to realize or recognize that people have taken an interest in you and want to mentor you. Mm-hmm. So I take that in mind, or I keep that in mind when I'm approaching people, or I'm scouting for, like, okay, this person's going to be a rock star. Like, let me go spend some time and energy on them, because the way I work, I love that what success looks like for me is not just me being at the table, like everybody's there with me. That's what success looks like. That gives me joy and brings satisfaction. in all aspects, job, personal, everything. So again, I lean on my personal experiences and see, you know, if this person needs some help, and even the ones that are like doing really well, it's still good to let them know you're doing a great job. If you need any help at all, like I can be your resource. Let me be that reference for you, whatever. You still want to check in on everybody. We got to be each other's advocate always.
Wow, that's really great advice. Liz, I'm going to friend request you today, and you can send me affirmations anytime you want. I agree. You can never get enough. So thank you for that. That's great to hear, and makes me want to be part of your community, because you know, it's just wonderful to have those people in our space. And you're right, we can be that person for the people in our spaces, right, every day. So that's really wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm going to transition now to our third beautiful panelist, Cindy Ramirez Ryan. Cindy, would you like to share some things about yourself with us?
You bet. Thank you, Joyce. Buenos dias. I'm so glad to be with you here today. Cindy Ramirez Ryan, and I'm the CEO of Moss Talent. It's Spanish for more talent. And we are a human resources, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and leadership advisory consulting firm. I founded Moss Talent 8 years ago after almost 25 years in corporate America, really leading these areas, both in DE&I and in human resources. Much of my responsibility was building programs and identifying leaders through succession planning, talent planning, and then just helping really develop the skill set. Now our work continues really with firms and corporate America, nonprofits and government, really to either help them enhance their journey along the way, and sometimes starting from ground up in that space. I'm also an executive coach, particularly with women and diverse high potential talent as well. Joyce, I also want to just share with you, I identify as Latina. I'm a Hispanic. I grew up also in New Mexico, very little small town, Carlsbad, New Mexico, and southern part of the state. I now live in Dallas, Texas, and it has been our home for almost 30 years. I'm also a parent of 4 almost grown children, from 29 to 17 as well. And our oldest son was, experienced life in a wheelchair. So I'm also a differently enabled community advocate as well. So I'm so glad to be here with my esteemed colleagues and to join the conversation.
Thank you, Cindy. Oh, I love hearing all of those things, the different intersections of how your journey has brought you here today. So many beautiful things to pull in. Thank you for that. I think hearing the work that you do is, really engaging to me. I love that you called it Moss. That's awesome. I loved hearing the connection to that as well, and really tying it. Feels like it was really heart-centered when you were creating that space. A question that comes up often is, what advice would you give to people, to women, especially coming up, young leaders coming, wanting to lead in this world? What advice do you wish someone had told you when you were starting out?
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. I love that question. So as we, as women and as leaders, just kind of explore interest and look to how do we continue really our focus and prepared to be in leadership. Looking back, just from my own experience, as well as advising other leaders, we prior to moving into leadership are focused around proving ourselves and standing out and being acknowledged, maybe just for the work that we do. When you move into a leadership position, your success is dependent on your team and how successful they are. It's not about you, it's about your team, helping empower them, helping them grow, removing barriers, and helping sing their praises and success. So it, it is definitely a shift from maybe a focus on yourself and more so, how do I help support and empower my team? I would say that probably is number one. Number two is just as you're in the leadership role, the biggest surprise to me was if I continue to do a great job, I'm going to be acknowledged and they will see the hard work that I'm putting in. And in reality, I had to back up and put personal barriers around what I was able to do in the corporate world and what my responsibilities and interests are from a family standpoint. There was no one going to come and say, Cindy, it's 9 o'clock at night and you're still here in the office. No, instead, I had to put those barriers around my own kind of responsibilities to say, I have to get out of here by 6, for dinner with my family, because, that's important too. And as soon as I was able to kind of reflect and reposition that, it was a better balance, both from professional and family.
Wow, that's really important. So what I hear you saying, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is that you learned how to set boundaries, right, in your life, both for work and personal. And it's a really difficult skill set to learn. I also identify as Latina, also Indigenous, but Latina. And in my Latino-centered home, there weren't a lot of boundaries taught in our culture. Everything was very enmeshed, and that was part of our culture, which is a loving and joyful thing. But also learning to set boundaries wasn't something that I personally learned until much later in life, and sometimes to the detriment, usually of my physical and mental health, because I learned to put achievement first, because that's what success looked like in my home and how I pleased my parents. And many of us come from cultures and ideas that success looks a certain way, and we strive for that, right? We all want that in our lives. And then we get to a point in our lives, I say my life, true story, that, it doesn't work quite the same way it did when you had a young body and unlimited energy, no children to keep alive. And so things shift. And I really think that's a powerful message to send to all leaders at whatever point in our leadership journey is that it is not only okay, but it is vital. It is really important to learn to set boundaries for you. And that might look 100 different ways for 100 different people. But it protects yourself, and that is 100% an okay thing to do, to put yourself first. And I know we talk a ton in all different segments of work life about balance, work-life balance, but we never really talk about what rest really is. The mothers who are, and fathers who are joining parents, we plan vacations. I do this every year. I plan a big week-long vacation. I'm lucky to be able to do that with my family. And it is not rest. There's no rest in vacation with 2 kids and a husband who packs the night before. It's not a thing. So I'm going to go off script a little here with you, Cindy. What does rest look like for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's something that we continually have to explore and, rejuvenate and adjust. For me, rest, it feels like the beach. And I just happened to be on a family vacation in Florida at the beach. And I'm fortunate to be able to mix work and fun as an entrepreneur. But for me, I have to have that connection really to the sand and the sound of the ocean. And it helps me kind of decompress and be creative as well, and rejuvenate that. So try to get out as much as I can.
That's great. Yeah, I get that. I am a strong advocate of one of my children attending a college on a beach, somewhere near a beach. So I have a good excuse. No pressure, children. It's okay. Whatever you choose, I love you. But
I love it.
Someone else's child too. I'm totally okay with that. Wonderful. Thank you, Cindy. And I'm going to move us just slightly, Cindy. We talk a lot about opportunities for leadership for women leaders today. What do you think are some of the greatest opportunities, either in your field or that you just see in the landscape, great opportunities for women leaders today to take advantage of?
Yeah, great question, Joyce. I think, is particularly, I even narrow that even more so for leaders who are already at mid-management level, who want to move up within the organization. So whether that's the executive level or kind of more responsibility, or laterally, right, in other areas. There are some things that really three things that jump out the most. When you're looking at mid-management, and then how do you move up to kind of that senior level for overall is strategy. So that typically is a gap. Do you have experience thinking broadly, thinking down the road, connecting kind of opportunities or areas where you can collaborate or work together? Or even just putting a plan together to look forward, right? Away from today, but more future focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of put that in a bucket around strategy. Financial acumen is another. It's the language of business. And so do you know the language? Are you comfortable with it? If not, how do you supplement your learning so that you are confident around your financial acumen and the numbers? It can be your friend and part of you, being able to sell your story. So developing really that financial acumen. And then the third and last I would probably highlight is just fully knowing where you want your career to go. And what I find in working with women leaders in particular is many times we don't know. We don't know, what does that next step look like? Or where do I really have an interest? Or where do I want to grow my career? On the contrary, men can typically share that right away. They know, and many times feel like they're more qualified with less of the skills than women are, right? Many times we see that women need to feel like you have the majority of those skills already before I will even kind of throw my hat in the ring. But regardless, what I would say is having a good, clear idea so that you can articulate, what does my career next step look like? Where would I like it to go? And what I find, particularly with looking or working with coaching or through succession planning, that many times, women leaders are tapped as potential, but they're not really sure where they want to go. And that's important. You need to know that in order to help steer your career.
Oh, I'm having a moment here, Cindy. You might be earning a client, just where it's
Yeah.
No, it's so deep. And what comes up for me when you talk about where you want to go, I mean, this also pulls in I was talking about Jamie Kaseup, and I happen to know Jamie from the work that I've done in education philanthropy. And one of his themes was always, when we're talking to young people, especially, the K-12 space, about what they want to be when they grow up. And he had this famous line of, we need to stop asking kids, what do they want to be when they grow up, but talk about what problem they want to solve in the world. And I really hold that and also translate that in this space, Cindy, of, when we're grown up, right? And we've gone to college and we have a degree in something, and we might change after we get a doctorate. So it's okay to change whole systems of how we thought about things before. And, ask ourselves as adults, as grownups, that same question, but in a different light of not what job I want to do or what title I want to hold. I mean, for so long, I grew up in a space of, well, being the CEO or the executive director of an organization is, of course, where I want to go, because that's where you have the most control, influence, power, whatever words you want to put behind it. But I never asked myself, is that actually the work that I want to be doing? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I'm in my role in charge of accounting systems. I don't want to be doing accounting, everybody. It's not my deal. It's not my passion. I do it and I'm great. I can, manage it and all that. I'm competent. But I never asked myself, what is the work that I want to be doing? And what do I want to feel when I'm doing that work, right? So allowing ourselves to shift the paradigm of how we look through that lens of what work we're doing, what job we want to have, what does that career journey look like? It isn't linear. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody, even yourself at times, trust me. But yeah, so I'm really in this moment personally about like, what is the work that is meaningful to me? And I honestly don't care what the job title is so much anymore. That used to be super meaningful to me, and now it's diminished in its meaningfulness. And that's okay, right? I think that that's just part of our progression as human beings and how we learn into this experience. So what's your reflection on that? What question would you ask of yourself or pose to, career professionals as they're maybe questioning some of these paradigms we hold about the importance of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a generational standpoint, a cultural standpoint, even gender, our gender roles, we are having to re-challenge or rethink even our own thinking, more or less our children, right? And kind of the next generations around what's possible, or it's okay to ask what I'd like to do, right? Instead of a title around it. So I think it's about narrowing and, some time to reflect. What do you like to do? Mm-hmm. What brings you joy? How do you want to leave your career at the end of your career? And, what do you need to do in order to accomplish that? So it's asking maybe some of those deeper questions about impact.
That's great. Oh, goodness. Thank you for that. So now, here comes the magic, right? We're going to weave in some of the different themes that each of you have brought up, because I wanted to get some reflections from different speakers on some topics that each of you have raised. And then we're going to transition to question and answers. I've been seeing some great questions bubble up in the chat. So one of the things that I wanted to raise, it was Ty, I believe, who really introduced us to this concept of barriers in the workplace, barriers that we create for ourselves or that are institutionally created for us, in sort of a rapid response way. Can you name a barrier that you yourself have encountered and how you overcame it? Or if you didn't, that's okay too. Maybe how you went around it, or however you tackled that barrier. Can you name a barrier that you experienced in your leadership journey? And I'm going to start with Liz.
Ooh, that is a loaded question. So many barriers. What to pick?
Pick one.
I know. Again, being in male-dominated industries, pretty much my entire professional career, it would be that. The fact that when you, as a diminutive Asian girl coming into the space with all these very, very egotistical type attitudes, especially because this is the military, and then getting out of that and in the civilian world, working for the DoD as a contractor, just that, the fact that you basically have that feeling of, oh, do I belong here? I want to belong here, and they make you feel that way too. Like, what are you doing here? You know what you're doing. And of course, just breaking through all of that stereotype of, yes, I do know what I'm doing, actually. And just because I'm new here doesn't mean I don't, because I've had more schooling or whatever else, right? And you've proven, again, the work speaks for itself. You don't even have to vocalize anything, and they just stand there and like, oh, okay. And when it comes to places like the military or working with trades, very hand type jobs, welders, machinists, because these were the type of professional communities I was a part of and still is a part of. They always look at you and how you work. Your work ethic speaks very loudly. The way you present yourself, the way you speak, the way you basically communicate with everybody all across the board, from the trades to the executives, they're watching you. And it's the women especially are watching you. And again, that's, you just lead by example. So the barrier is just men in general, sorry to say, just to put it plainly, just men being, what are you doing here? Why are you here? So.
Thank you for that, Liz. I think that probably resonates with quite a few of us on the seminar today. Ty, how would you respond to that? What's a barrier that you want to speak about?
Experience has been a barrier that has come up multiple times for me along my journey. The type of experience that's expected, or where that experience was targeted, or there's just I feel that we have a lot to bring to the table, and sometimes if you don't come in this package that's expected, that is a barrier that you have to overcome, because you do have to show that you are capable of certain things without having a specific type of experience, or without being able to show extensive years of being able to accomplish something in one space. But that's something that, especially in this day and time, we do have to overcome, because we're all coming from different backgrounds. We have different ways that we've made impacts. And when we're approaching these leadership roles or growth in our career, it's important to understand how what you have done has made an impact and how you've brought value, so that when you're speaking to these things, you can translate across field, or you can translate across different roles to say, I can bring value to this because of what I've done in these areas, versus I've had 10 years of experience in this one targeted area. So that's how I can do this job, right? So I think just understanding where you stand, doing what you love, as has been going through the chat for the last couple minutes, and being able to communicate that, as Liz talked about, in a way that shows the value you brought and how you can use that to move the new area forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Ty. And Cindy, what's your barrier that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we all move up in leadership, there's an opportunity for better representation, not only for women, but, for culture and race, and all the diversity dimensions around it. So that has been a barrier, being the only one for many times in, a representation category. But the second, I would say, is culture, my own culture. There's some great things really about the Hispanic culture that I've grown up with, but there's some also that have made me feel as though I'm less than, or having an imposter syndrome, right? I don't really belong here, which I think Liz alluded to that and shared that earlier. So it's getting comfortable out of my comfort zone, and forcing myself to take action that is contrary to the culture that I grew up in. Yeah, around that as well. I think that probably, even though I had a space, continues really to be an area that I have to work on, because it developed so early in my life, around culture and expectations really around gender roles.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, that one really resonates with me as well in a number of different ways. As a young woman, earlier in my career in philanthropy, which is a space heavily dominated by white older males, my voice was most often not invited or welcome at a lot of different tables. And also being raised in a culture where being quiet and diminutive was more appreciated. That just was never who I was. Even as a small child, I was not that. And if you know me now, you definitely know, okay, that's definitely not Joyce. So it was really difficult for me to navigate a lot of those spaces of when to choose to use my voice in powerful ways, even when I knew I'm making a lot of people at this table feel really uncomfortable. And that would make me feel uncomfortable because, you get worried about all the things. And is my job in jeopardy? Literally, is my livelihood at risk because I am saying the thing that needs to be said? And if I were a man, it would be more acceptable for me to say it out loud and hold my space. And I just had to live to learn with that discomfort. And now I'm in a space in my career where I actually can invite the discomfort and I'm chill, I'm good. Like if you're uncomfortable, I welcome that, we can talk about it. But I really had to remove my fear And it was fear of what I was going to lose by using my voice. And what I learned is that the only thing I was losing was my voice if I chose not to use it in the way that I felt was authentic and genuine. So that really resonates with me. I'm so thrilled to hear, different barriers and ways that we can overcome them and sharing them with our audience here, because each of those experiences is a path forward for somebody else that might have the similar fear or might come from a similar cultural identity or understanding, might be in a space that's dominated by a different group. Men, not to say that men, we're all raised in these systems of being, and men are raised in those systems too. And we just need to learn ways to navigate so that we create space and power for all. It's really what I think we're advocating for. All right. It looks like we have time for some questions. Now, the chat has been going and I've been paying attention to the screen. So is there Soraya, I'm going to ask you, or to help me identify a few questions that you think popped up that would be great to share with our panelists.
Yes, and so one of the questions we have here and that was a question for Liz, as a male that supports women in business and leadership, what did you feel your male mentors did that you felt was effective in your development and success? It was directed for Liz, but I think we can all, if you all have anything to add as well, please do.
What a great question. I can totally answer that. Yeah. Basically just putting me in roles. I recognizing that I knew what I was doing, recognizing that I was a great leader, recognizing that I articulated myself well and I communicated all across different experience levels and educational backgrounds. And again, mentoring me. So most of the men and allies in all aspects of my professional life saw that, because again, the basic tenet of being a good leader is letting the work speak for yourself, be an example, right? So I just showed that I knew what I was doing. And these people just saw it and saw something good in me and said, hey, you should be this. Oh, hey, you're good at that. You should be this now. So just basically recognizing who outside of your circle of males, if you're in a male dominated industry, obviously, just recognize who in your circle is doing really well, knows their stuff, and could really use an advocate in you. So as a male, you hold a lot of influence and power, regardless of your title or your role. Just the fact that you're advocating for somebody, whether you're a trade, executive, a manager, whatever, supervisor, just because you're the default, your voice speaks volumes by saying, she's really good. She should really do this stuff here. Mm-hmm. And that's how it's been for me.
I completely agree with that. I think one of the most powerful moments for me when I was in philanthropy, sitting at these tables with really powerful, influential decision makers in education philanthropy. And I had my boss, who was my mentor at the time, when somebody would ask him for his input, he would turn and literally look at me and say, I want to hear what Joyce has to say. And that would force the rest of the men and people at the table to give me space. And it threw me off my game at first, because I was like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that. But then I got ready for it, right? And and you can do that as a man or a woman if you have power. You can choose not to use your voice in a moment where you always get airtime, and give your time, your power, to somebody else who might not get the opportunity if you don't share it with them. You're going to have plenty of opportunity because of your role or whatever. Give them some space.
That was so good. I think this entire session has been, I feel like I'm at a church service and it's just preaching. So it's beautiful. Thank you. And so here's another question. How did you learn to, and this is for everyone, how did you learn to overcoming feeling like you were losing your voice in settings? Would you suggest any readings on more, or how to navigate settings, or taking any learning from others? Any suggestions?
I think if you have, I'll chime in here if I can, Sarai. if you have a mentor or a sponsor, someone that you trust, that knows your ability and can help advocate for you, the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it, you gain your confidence around it. That is absolutely one way. I'm going to share a very untraditional advice here. But for me personally and my girls, my daughters, I have recommended to play a game or games to build your confidence around risk and strategy and managing your confidence. And that's chess or craps or poker. All of those are male-dominated games. And you will be a very, very, less than 5% of women play. Of the players are women, all of those. And you're in the space, you're learning about strategy, you're understanding the game, and it helps you build the confidence in that space. So it can translate to your career and to opportunities as well.
So I think here's one great question, and maybe we can use it to go around and perhaps use this as the last question to wrap up. What role have mentors played in your success as a leader?
I can start. I know, and I was thinking about this while Cindy and Liz were talking, I know that there is a specific person that I have in mind who has been able to stand in that gap and to help me grow and help guide me, and also just be an advocate for my growth by saying, you know what, you step into this space, I believe in you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see what you do with this. I'm gonna throw these things in your lap, and I'm gonna give you an opportunity to show that you can handle whatever we give and whatever we throw your way. So I've had a few people like that along my journey, some women and some men. But I just think finding your ally, and I threw that in the chat for Dorothy too, who had a comment about her board. Just finding an ally and somebody who will be able to give you that voice. And I know we're all about having our own voice and standing up, but sometimes you do need someone else to partner with you to open that door, like Joyce said. What do you think about that, Joyce? What do you think about that, Cindy? And then once you start sharing your knowledge and your abilities, others start to pay attention and say, wow, she does know what she's doing. Let's give her a little bit more responsibility, or give her a little bit more opportunity to mentor other people. So for me, it's finding allies in this space.
I would agree. I would just add to that there are times that it helps you stand out as a leader, as a woman leader, to go seek out a mentor. Think about within your organization, or even externally. Do you have someone that you look up to, that you admire, that you can learn from, that could be an advocate for you? And absolutely, recommend reach out to them. Share your story, share what you want to learn. Organizations and senior leaders want to see that. They want us to take the initiative to go and ask for, guidance and mentorship to help direct kind of our career growth around that. I would not recommend kind of waiting to see if you get called on, because we might get passed by. Right? So using your voice to help direct kind of where your interest is.
Thank you. And actually, I have to say we are at time, and I want to make sure we get a minute to thank everyone for just being here. Thank you to each of you panelists. And my goodness, today's session was so amazing. I think we all learned so much, and we really intended for this to be the behind the scenes. We often see the glamour of leadership and success, but we wanted to pull the curtain and really show the ups and downs of each of your experiences, and yet here you are. So thank you for sharing that. And Actually, to wrap up, we do have our second annual summit. We're so excited on May 2nd through 4th. So make sure you sign up, register, join us, join the other 2,500 people that have already registered so we can connect, talk about the impact of social and emotional wellness within the workplace, in your classrooms. How is it that we can learn together and continue to grow as an inclusive leader? And then also next month, we'll have the webinar on April 20th. So make sure you join us there. Thank you, Joyce, Cindy, Dr. Ty, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you all have a great rest of your day.